When I was growing up, I had no real friends to speak of. I was always a kid that would be picked last for any activity, often bullied by others, and would just sit by myself during lunchtime while everyone else hung out with their friends. I just didn't have any confidence in talking to kids of my age, and it didn't help that my head was full of conflicting thoughts. For those who don't know me too well, I'm a transgender, male to female. My original name was Callum, but I've been Callie for about half my life now. I often don't really like speaking about me being trans too much. It's not that I'm ashamed of it, far from it. I just don't think it's that important in terms of getting to know the nerd I am. It's just a small part of me. I'd much rather have people like or hate me because of my personality rather than anything relating to my gender. Still, as a young kid, it was extremely difficult to deal with the thoughts that were going on within my head. I never felt comfortable in my own skin and certain body parts. Once, I even asked my family if I could dress up as a girl. I got to wear a pretty dress and we even went outside somewhere. I know my parents didn't really think much of it at the time and most likely assumed it to be just silly kid antics. But looking back at it now, they can clearly see that there was something different about me. My childhood wasn't all depressing though, especially thanks to my awesome family, but also thanks to video games! Here we go! I loved my Nintendo 64 growing up. I spent so many countless hours playing my first game ever, Yoshi's Story, and racing in Mario Kart 64. Video games were basically my whole lifestyle. But I was a young kid in the 90s, and at that time, video games were still heavily considered just a boys' thing. So for someone like me who had these strange feelings about my gender, it was kind of mixed messaging. I loved games, but they weren't for girls, but I felt more like that than I ever felt like a boy. It's probably one of the reasons why it took so long for me to come out. But there is one video game character that helped me get a new perspective on things, helping me become the person I am today. And that's all thanks to a cute little pink hedgehog. But before we get to her, I need to talk about how I met a blue hedgehog first. My first introduction to the Sonic franchise wasn't from me playing one of his games or watching any of his early TV shows. No, my first introduction to Sonic was a toy my dad came home with one day. My dad was a scientist, so he had to travel a fair bit for his work, but he would often come back with presents for my sister and me. And on one of these business trips, my dad came home with a present that would ultimately change my life forever. This incredible, luxury, ugly little toy. Yeah, until I searched it up for this video, I kind of forgot how weird looking this figure is. But hey, this was the first time I ever saw Sonic and I thought it was super cool. You could even pull the back of his quills off and there would be candy inside of his head. It was most likely terrible, but I probably still ate it. The next time I remember seeing Sonic was at the video store, where they had some rentable copies of Sonic 2, as well as VHS tapes of The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. I of course wanted the video games, as I loved my Nintendo 64, but my dad would not let me rent them because we had no way to actually play them, a concept I didn't understand at the time as I was an idiot, and didn't realize you needed specific consoles to run different types of games, so we just ended up getting the VHSs instead. This TV show isn't anything too special nowadays, besides its Dr. Robotnik being a great source of memes.
I'll have to give myself a promotion!
But as a kid, I freaking loved it. We would rent the VHS tapes for it over and over, and I'm pretty sure my parents got really sick of it. I did eventually get to play Sonic 2 at someone's house, but I only got to be Tails and then when only he was on screen during the single player, not the specific multiplayer mode because the kid was an ass. So I really wouldn't call that my first experience of playing a Sonic game. Fast forward to 2001 and my parents got me my own Sega Dreamcast for my 8th birthday. And it came with quite a few games as well, including Sonic Shuffle, Sega Smash Pack, and Sonic Adventure. My dad helped me hook up the Dreamcast and we turned it on. Oh my god, this intro still gives me chills! I remember me and my dad ended up having this intro play on loop for a few minutes. It was just such a step up to what we were used to. After the intro played for what feels like the 5th time, I finally progressed past the title screen and started playing the game. But then... I was god-awful at this game as a kid. My platforming roots were established in much slower games like Yoshi's Story, Mario 64, and Banjo-Kazooie, and I wasn't even good at those. My dad often got me through a fair bit of those games. A platforming game this fast, while it was super fun, I just couldn't play it right. Still, I progressed through the story as much as I could at the time and got all the way to completing the first tornado stage in Sonic's playthrough. After that, the game has you mindlessly walk around the city of Station Square until you bump into a certain pink hedgehog.
Sonic, wait up! Long time no see!
Amy.
This was the first time I ever saw Amy Rose, which for some reason I thought she was a cat. She asked Sonic if he would be able to help her with protecting this flicky she found. Sonic is a bit of an ass though, dismissing Amy, which I didn't understand at the time as she was just asking for help. I'm guessing Sonic was remembering his previous encounter he had with these birds. The cutscene ends and the game says you can now play as Amy. You know what, Sonic? Forget you! That last plane level was boring! I'm gonna go hang out with the pink cat!
It's my turn now!
Amy was the first female character I saw having a major playable role within a game's story. If the character was female, they were most likely only playable in spin-off games, or they were the damsel in distress for the hero to rescue. Amy's story begins with her being super bored with normal day-to-day life, longing for more excitement as well as spending time with her hero, Sonic. As the game literally hears her plead for adventure, Dr. Eggman's flying fortress, the Egg Carrier, shows up over the city of Station Square.
What's that? Ah! Ow! You should watch where you're going, buddy! Hey, are you alright?
Amy and her new flicky friend instantly get attacked by one of Dr. Eggman's robots, Zero, who's after the Chaos Emerald the small bird is hiding. Seeing that this flicky is in grave danger, Amy sets off to protect her new feathery friend in any way she can. Walking around Station Square for a bit, you run into Sonic and the same cutscene that happens in his story plays. We then bumble around some more until we start heading towards Twinkle Park, her first action stage. Amy's story was much more my speed. Her gameplay was a lot more about simple platforming and just progressing from point A to point B. In fact, it's really simple compared to the rest of the cast. There's no super speed sections, emerald collecting, fishing, but I feel like I'm forgetting something. Right, Zero. God, this robot would freak me out as a kid. He could break through the walls, come crashing down behind you, and no matter how many times you hit him, he just wouldn't die! Your only option was to continue outrunning him or try to Metal Gear it, but that never worked, so I don't understand why they bothered to program it in! Sorry, just 19 years of pent-up frustration. Upon completing the first level, Amy gets captured and is locked up on the Egg Carrier. Yeah, damsel in distress, I know, but we actually get to see what happens to her. In her jail cell, she gets interrogated by one of Eggman's new robots, Gamma, who's been sent to retrieve the flicky from her. Amy downright refuses, which leads them to argue.
Hand me the bird.
No! You!
But ultimately, Amy takes pity on Gamma, realizing that he was a robot made without feelings. After their confrontation, Gamma ends up letting both of them escape. Amy acknowledges that he's unlike the other robots Eggman has built and hopes that they can be friends. We then quickly crush Eggman's pathetic high score in the next room over and start heading towards Amy's second act, Hot Shelter. Or should I say, Hot Beats? Sorry. Completing the stage reunites us with Sonic and Gamma, who are fighting on top of the ship. Gamma ends up taking critical damage, and just before Sonic can deliver the final blow, Amy gets between them. Standing up to her number one hero, she gathers all of her courage and pleads for him to stop fighting.
Amy! Okay, I guess I'll let him go then.
It doesn't get talked about enough these days, but I love no matter the situation, even standing up against the person she adores the most. Amy is always able to see the good in others and takes pity on the less fortunate. It's such a sweet and caring side of her character, and it's a shame how often it gets overlooked. I always find it to be a treat when we get to see it explored in the games and other media like the Sonic Mania adventure shorts. Eggman's ship starts to lose altitude, but before it can crash into the ocean, Amy ends up escaping it thanks to Tails. She then finds out that the Flicky she's been helping to protect is looking for their family. After Amy's third and final action stage, we're able to track down the other Flickies at the crash site of the egg carrier. It seems like a happy end until Zero shoots the Flicky you've been protecting out of the sky.
You idiot! How could you do this?
This boss fight is super simple, but extremely satisfying. We're no longer running from the stupid robot that has been harassing us the entire game. We get to kick his ass! And seeing him blow up in late 90s graphics is just a blast processing on the cake. Once Zero is finally destroyed, the Flickies say their farewells and fly off together. Amy realized that she needs to keep on trying her best and take charge of her own story, especially if she wants to win the respect of Sonic and the others around her. Nothing will change unless she takes action.
Just watch me! I'll make that Sonic respect me! And by that time it's gonna be too late! Mwah!
This was the first story I ever completed in Sonic Adventure, and to be frank, the first story I completed in any game. While I had finished some Nintendo games at the time by myself, most of them were not story-driven, even in the slightest, and hardly had any cutscenes or character interactions to speak of. I know Amy's gameplay has been critiqued quite heavily with her being slower than most of the cast, but as a kid I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I still do now. It was so refreshing to see a female character that wasn't just the end goal of the hero. She had her own missions to complete and an adventure to go on. It just really stuck to me. It was the first indication I ever got that video games don't always have to focus on a male hero saving the day. A hero can be anyone. Video games can be for anyone. I know this may all sound a bit silly now, especially since the gaming gender stereotype is long since dead. But back then, Amy was one of the few examples of a powerful female character in a major family game. I love how much we see her grow over the course of the story, standing up for others and taking on her fears. She was a massive role model for me. I no longer felt like it was incorrect for me to like video games, my main place to escape from my thoughts and the world around me. It's not to say that I wouldn't be the person I am today without this little pink hedgehog, but she really helped me better understand and deal with these issues I had as a child, a time where we can feel quite vulnerable. She gave me the confidence that I could be the person I wanted to be, and I wanted to be exactly like her. She also strengthened my passion for the Sonic series, which ultimately led me down the path to meet my first real set of friends. Sadly, Sega didn't fully continue with her character at first. She became a lot more Sonic focused and wasn't even one of the main playable characters in this game's sequel. But hey, she was super overpowered in the multiplayer.
Just wait a minute. Just wait a minute. Just wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Just wait a minute.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
And she still had major parts in the story, like helping Sonic escape jail and getting Shadow to realize what Maria's true final wish was. And thankfully in more recent media installments, Amy is finally becoming the character that Sonic Adventure was leading up to. Her affection on Sonic has been greatly downplayed, but she still openly loves him, which I do think is very cute. Though she's much more focused on helping and protecting those around her, as well as taking on any dangerous situation that comes her way. No matter what the direction the Sonic franchise goes next, I always shall be rooting for my favorite pink hedgehog. She may just be a fictional character, but she's had more major impacts on my life than some real people have. I'm looking forward to seeing what role she'll play in the upcoming 30th anniversary game, and here's hoping we'll get to see her set off on her own adventure sometime real soon. Also, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie sequel was just announced, so please put her in there, you cowards!